The courtroom was silent, a suffocating kind of quiet that pressed against the walls and wrapped around the people inside. Every seat was filled, and yet no one moved, no one spoke. The weight of the moment rested heavily on everyone's shoulders, but none felt it more than Logan Pierce, a former Special Forces operative, who now sat in his wheelchair at the center of it all. His posture was rigid, his hands clenched tightly around the leash of the dog beside him. At his side sat Bravo, a German shepherd whose piercing amber eyes scanned the room with practiced vigilance. To the outside world, he was just a military working dog, an asset, a tool of war, but to Logan, he was so much more. He was a lifeline, a silent protector who had pulled him from the brink of death more times than he could count. Logan's voice was strained as he spoke, each word laced with raw emotion. "Your Honor, Bravo isn't just a piece of equipment. He's not a weapon, not property. He's my partner. He saved my life in ways I can never repay. On the battlefield, he shielded me from bullets, detected explosives before we walked into death traps. But when the war ended, when I came home broken, he did something even more incredible. He helped me live again." His voice cracked on the last word, but he pushed forward, determined to make them understand. "Without Bravo, I don't know if I'd still be here today. And now, after everything, after we fought side by side, the army wants to take him away from me." The judge, an older man with deep lines etched into his face, watched him carefully, hands clasped in thought. "Sergeant Pierce, the decision is not mine alone. Military working dogs are considered government property. Bravo has been deemed necessary for redeployment." Logan's grip tightened around the leash. "He's not a machine you can just reassign. He's family." A murmur rippled through the audience, hushed whispers of sympathy and outrage. Some wiped at their eyes, others clenched their fists, as if they too felt the injustice of it all. The judge sighed, rubbing his temple before straightening in his chair. "I understand your concerns, Sergeant. But unless there is substantial evidence that keeping Bravo is in the best interest of the military, the decision stands." Logan's heart sank. He could feel the verdict slipping through his fingers. This was supposed to be his final chance to fight for Bravo, to bring him home. But just as the judge prepared to speak his final ruling, something unexpected happened. Bravo jerked forward, yanking the leash free from Logan's grasp. His ears stood straight, his muscles tense. Then he barked, a sharp, commanding sound that cut through the courtroom like a gunshot. A wave of confusion washed over the room. Some gasped, startled by the sudden outburst. Others instinctively recoiled in their seats. But Logan knew better. This wasn't random. His breath caught in his throat as he watched Bravo's body language. His tail was stiff, his stance low, his eyes locked on the far end of the courtroom. Something was wrong. Bravo was detecting a threat. The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder as people exchanged worried glances. Logan's pulse quickened as he wheeled himself forward, trying to get a better view of what had set Bravo off. "What is it, boy?" he asked, his voice steady but his insides twisting with unease. Bravo didn't respond. Instead, his growls deepened, his focus unwavering. He was in full alert mode now. The judge frowned, clearly unnerved by the display. "Control your dog, Sergeant Pierce, or I will have him removed." Logan barely heard him. His mind was already running through possibilities. His instinct screaming at him to pay attention. "No. This isn't normal," Logan said, his voice firm. "Bravo doesn't react like this unless there's danger." The tension in the room thickened. The bailiffs exchanged nervous glances, shifting uneasily by the judge's bench. Then, just as the judge opened his mouth to speak, it happened. A loud metallic clang echoed from the far end of the courtroom. The sound sent a jolt through the room. A few people yelped in surprise. One of the bailiffs instinctively reached for his holster. Bravo's barking intensified, sharp, relentless. Filled with urgency. His body strained forward, every fiber of his being locked onto something unseen. Logan's stomach twisted. He had seen this behavior before, on the battlefield. Bravo was alerting them to something dangerous, something no one else could see yet. "Something's wrong," Logan said, his voice urgent. He turned to the bailiffs. "Check the hallway. Now." One of them hesitated but eventually nodded, his hand tightening around his radio as he moved toward the heavy courtroom doors. He reached for the handle. Then it swung open on its own. And standing there, shrouded in the dim light of the hallway, was a man. The stranger took a step forward, his movements calm. Too calm. He was dressed in dark clothing, his face shadowed by the hood of his jacket. Logan felt a cold chill creep down his spine. Something was off. Bravo was still growling, his body language screaming that this man was a threat. "Can I help you?" the judge asked. His voice measured but firm. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he let his gaze drift toward Bravo. And then he smirked. "I'm not here for you," he said, his voice smooth. Unsettling. "I'm here for the dog." The words sent a wave of unease through the room. Logan's jaw tightened as he shifted slightly in his wheelchair, instinctively placing himself between Bravo and the stranger. "Like hell you are." The stranger chuckled. "You don't understand, Sergeant Pierce. Bravo doesn't belong to you. He belongs to us. And we're taking him back." Logan's fingers curled into fists. He could hear the judge demanding answers, hear the whispers rising in the crowd, but all of it faded into background noise. Because in that moment, he knew one thing for certain: this fight wasn't over. And whatever was coming next, he and Bravo would face it together. The soldier's final goodbye with his dog took an unexpected turn, Part 2. The tension in the courtroom thickened like a gathering storm. The air felt charged, heavy with something unspoken. Logan Pierce's grip tightened on Bravo's leash as he locked eyes with the man who had just stepped into the room. The stranger stood still. His body relaxed in a way that sent a wave of unease through Logan's gut. He had seen this before, the quiet confidence of a man who held all the power in a room full of people who didn't yet realize it. But Logan wasn't just any man. He had spent years on the battlefield, had learned to recognize threats before they struck. And right now, his instincts were screaming. Bravo hadn't stopped growling. A deep, low vibration rumbled from the dog's chest, his hackles raised, his amber eyes locked onto the intruder like a predator sizing up another. The judge's voice cut through the tension. Sharp and commanding. "Who are you? State your business or I will have you removed immediately." The man didn't flinch. Instead, he smirked. "I believe I already stated my business," he said, his voice smooth, unsettling. "I'm here for the dog." A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Spectators whispered among themselves, some glancing toward Logan with confusion. Others watching with growing unease. The bailiffs had their hands near their weapons now, no longer treating this as a simple disruption. Logan's jaw clenched. "You're not taking him." His voice was firm, unwavering. The man took a slow step forward, his hands still tucked into his jacket pockets. The movement was measured, calculated, like he knew exactly how far he could push before the situation snapped. "Sergeant Pierce," he said, tilting his head slightly, his expression still unreadable. "You don't understand. Bravo isn't just a dog. He's special. You know it. I know it. And the people I work for?" He let out a small, knowing chuckle. "Well, let's just say they don't take no for an answer." A cold knot twisted in Logan's stomach. Who was this guy? And how the hell did he know about Bravo? The judge slammed his gavel down, his voice thundering with authority. I will not allow threats in my courtroom. Bailiffs, escort this man out immediately. The two bailiffs at the front of the room immediately sprang into action, moving toward the stranger with cautious but firm steps. But then, something changed. Bravo's growl deepened into something primal, something Logan had never heard from him before. The dog's body stiffened, his stance shifting lower, ready to attack. And Logan knew something was wrong. Stop, he barked, his voice sharp enough to cut through the noise. But it was too late. The moment the bailiffs reached for the stranger, he moved. Faster than anyone expected. 1 second he was standing there, completely still. The next, his hand shot out, twisting the first bailiff's arm with brutal efficiency. A grunt of pain escaped the officer's lips as he staggered backward. The second bailiff reacted quickly, reaching for his weapon, but the stranger was already in motion. A blur of movement. A strike to the wrist. The gun clattered to the floor. A gasp rippled through the room. Someone screamed. Bravo lunged. For a heartbeat, everything slowed. Logan saw it all, the raw power in Bravo's muscles as he sprang forward, the stranger shifting his weight just in time to dodge, the glint of something metallic hidden beneath his jacket. A knife. Logan reacted on instinct. He yanked Bravo's leash at the last possible second, pulling the dog away just before the blade could connect. The knife sliced through the air with deadly precision, missing Bravo by inches. The stranger cursed under his breath, his calm facade momentarily slipping. His eyes flicked toward Logan, a spark of something unreadable flashing in them. Then, before anyone could react, he bolted. The heavy courtroom doors slammed open as he vanished into the hallway, his footsteps echoing off the marble floor. Logan didn't think. He acted. Ignoring the shouts behind him, he wheeled himself forward, Bravo pulling hard on the leash as they pursued. The dog was locked onto the scent now, his body straining toward the hallway, eager to chase. Bravo, track! Logan ordered. The German shepherd let out a sharp bark and took off, his nose to the ground, leading Logan through the doors and into the corridor beyond. The hallway was long, dimly lit, the walls lined with old framed photographs of past judges and legal figures. Logan's wheels spun fast against the tile as he maneuvered around the corner. The stranger was nowhere in sight. Bravo whined, his nose pressed to the floor, his tail stiff as he sniffed furiously. He had the scent. He knew the target was close. Logan's pulse pounded in his ears. He glanced left. Right. Nothing. Then, a door creaked open just ahead. A flicker of movement. He's still here. Bravo, hold. Logan whispered, gripping the leash tightly. His heartbeat thundered as he reached for the radio clipped to his wheelchair. This is Pierce, he said, keeping his voice low. Suspect is still inside the building. Need backup at the south hallway, near exit 3. A static-filled response crackled through. Copy that, Sergeant. Officers are en route. Logan exhaled, bracing himself. He knew he shouldn't go in alone. But he also knew this man wasn't just some random threat. He had come for Bravo. And that meant Logan had to know why. The hallway was eerily silent except for the sharp click of Bravo's nails against the cold tile. The air smelled of old paper, dust, and something else, something Logan couldn't quite place. A hint of metal. Oil. Gunpowder? His gut twisted. Every instinct screamed danger. The door at the far end of the corridor was still swaying slightly from being pushed open. The stranger had gone through there. He was still inside. Logan tightened his grip on Bravo's leash. "Bravo, easy," he murmured. The dog's ears flicked at his voice, but his posture remained stiff, every muscle in his body coiled. He was locked onto something. From the radio clip to his wheelchair, a voice crackled through. "Pierce, officers are 2 minutes out. Do not engage. I repeat, do not engage." Logan exhaled slowly. 2 minutes. A lot could happen in 2 minutes. A scuffling sound, soft, almost imperceptible. A shuffle of boots against the tile. Someone was in that room. Watching. Waiting. Logan's pulse pounded. His mind flashed back to Iraq, to darkened alleys, hidden explosives, the feeling of knowing you were being watched but not knowing from where. His fingers brushed against the handle of the sidearm holstered at his hip. He hadn't had to use it since he returned home. He prayed today wouldn't be the first time. He took a steadying breath and did what every part of his military training told him not to do. He moved forward. A step into the unknown. The door creaked slightly as Logan pushed it open with his free hand. The room beyond was dark, lit only by the weak glow of a single flickering overhead light. It was a supply room, filled with shelves stacked high with old legal files, stacks of yellowed paper, and office equipment. But Logan wasn't focused on any of that. His eyes were locked on the man standing near the back wall. The stranger's hood was down now, revealing sharp, angular features, dark hair slicked back, and piercing gray eyes that seemed to take in everything. He wasn't afraid. He was calm. Too calm. Logan's jaw tightened. Bravo's growl rumbled low and steady, a warning that filled the space like distant thunder. The man didn't move. Instead, he lifted his hands slowly. His lips curling into that same knowing smirk. "You're faster than I expected, Sergeant," he said, his voice smooth, calculated. "Impressive." Logan didn't respond. His grip on the leash never loosened. And his other hand hovered near his weapon. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. The man's smirk didn't falter. "Just someone who understands what you have." His gaze flickered down to Bravo. "And why he doesn't belong to you?" Logan's chest tightened. "That's where you're wrong." The man tilted his head slightly, considering him. "You really think this is over?" he asked. Almost amused. "You think this is just about a dog?" Logan's fingers tensed. Because no. He didn't think that anymore. Something was wrong. Something bigger than him. Bigger than Bravo. And this man knew exactly what it was. But before Logan could speak, the stranger took a step back. And suddenly, smoke filled the room. A sharp hiss, the unmistakable scent of chemicals burning his nose. Tear gas. Logan reacted on instinct. "Bravo, back," he ordered, yanking the leash and retreating before the gas could overwhelm them. Through the swirling fog, he saw the stranger dart toward the emergency exit. Logan cursed. "Damn it!" He wheeled himself back into the hallway, choking slightly from the gas. Bravo stayed close to his side, eyes wild but focused. The courtroom doors burst open as armed officers finally arrived. Weapons drawn, eyes scanning for threats. "Pierce," one of them called. "Where is he?" Logan coughed and pointed toward the smoke-filled room. "Gone." Took the emergency exit. The officers rushed forward, but Logan already knew. The man was gone. Vanished. Leaving nothing behind but more questions. The truth begins to unravel. 15 minutes later. Logan sat outside the courthouse, Bravo at his feet, still restless. A cold anger simmered beneath his skin. He hated being left in the dark. He hated not knowing. A uniformed officer approached. "No sign of him," he said. Security cameras outside were disabled. Whoever he is, he planned this. Logan exhaled sharply. Of course he did. The officer hesitated. You okay, Sergeant? Logan ran a hand through his hair. I don't know. Because he didn't. All he knew was that someone, some organization, wanted Bravo. And not just because he was a well-trained military dog. Because of something else. Something Logan still didn't understand. The envelope. Just as he was about to stand, Bravo let out a short bark. Logan frowned. What is it, boy? Bravo nudged something with his nose. A small envelope. It had been slipped under the bench while Logan wasn't looking. His pulse spiked. Heart hammering, he picked it up and tore it open. Inside was a single slip of paper. A message. Your dog is special. You have no idea why. But you will soon. Logan's blood ran cold. Who the hell was L? Why did they want Bravo? And what the hell had he just been pulled into? A secret buried in the past. Logan sat in his dimly lit apartment, the envelope still in his hands. He had read the message a dozen times. But it never made more sense. Your dog is special. You have no idea why. But you will soon. L. The words felt like a challenge. Bravo lay at his feet, his ears twitching. Sensing Logan's unease. He had always been more than a dog, he was a soldier, a partner, a lifeline. But now, Logan realized, Bravo was also a mystery. A knock on the door snapped Logan out of his thoughts. He reached for his sidearm before opening it. Standing in the hallway was a woman in her late 30s, wearing a plain black jacket and dark jeans. Her posture was tense, and her eyes flicked past Logan. Scanning the apartment. Sergeant Pierce, she asked. Logan's grip tightened. Who's asking? She exhaled, stepping forward. My name is Dr. Evelyn Carter. I used to work for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. DARPA. Logan's stomach clenched. DARPA. The Black Ops Research Division of the U.S. military. The people who created technology before the public even knew it existed. And she had just shown up at his door. Logan stepped aside, letting her in. As she entered, her gaze fell on Bravo. Her lips parted slightly, almost in awe. So it's true, she whispered. Logan crossed his arms. Start talking. A dog unlike any other. Evelyn turned to face him, her voice low and urgent. Bravo isn't just a military working dog, Sergeant. She hesitated. He's part of a classified project. One the government doesn't want you knowing about. Logan's heartbeat slowed. Project? She nodded. Project Sentinel. Logan frowned. Never heard of it. Evelyn folded her arms. You weren't supposed to. She glanced at Bravo, who watched her without blinking. You ever wonder why he's different? Why he reacts before danger even happens? Why he seems to know things before they unfold? Logan stayed silent. Of course, he'd noticed. Bravo had saved him more times than he could count. But it wasn't just his training, it was something deeper, something unnatural. Evelyn continued. He's not just a dog. He's enhanced. Logan felt the floor shift beneath him. What the hell does that mean? Evelyn sighed. Bravo's brain has been augmented. A classified neurological enhancement program was tested on select military canines years ago. Only a handful survived. Logan's throat went dry. He looked at Bravo. His dog. His best friend. Altered? Experimented on? Evelyn took a cautious step forward. Bravo doesn't just react to danger, Logan. She held his gaze. He senses it before it happens. He can predict threats, sometimes minutes, sometimes hours in advance. His brain processes patterns in ways humans can't. Logan's hands clenched into fists. They had done this to him. They had turned his dog into a weapon. The target on Bravo's back. Why are they after him now? Logan asked, his voice sharp. Evelyn hesitated. Because Project Sentinel was never supposed to exist. Logan's chest tightened. Evelyn swallowed. The enhancements, they were unstable. Every other surviving dog, she stopped. They didn't make it. Logan's breath hitched. What are you saying? She exhaled shakily. Bravo is the only one left. The room felt colder. The military had covered it up. Buried the failures. Erased every trace. But Bravo had slipped through the cracks. And now, they wanted him back. Or worse, eliminated. Logan ran a hand through his hair. So who the hell is L? Evelyn's face darkened. Liam Graves. Former DARPA scientist. He helped build the neural enhancement program. Then he disappeared, until now. Logan inhaled sharply. The man from the courthouse. The one who had known about Bravo. And now, he was hunting them. A choice that can't be undone. Evelyn took a step closer. Listen to me, Sergeant. The people coming for Bravo, they aren't going to stop. And I promise you, the government isn't going to protect you. They'll deny he ever existed before they admit to what they did. Logan's grip on Bravo's leash tightened. His dog, the one who had saved his life 100 times over, was now in danger because of something they had done to him. His gut twisted with fury. Then what do we do? Evelyn studied him carefully. We run. Logan stared at her. Leaving meant disappearing. Going off the grid. Becoming ghosts. Was that even possible? He looked at Bravo. The dog who had given him everything. The dog he owed his life to. He already knew his answer. Logan clenched his jaw. Where do we start? Evelyn let out a slow breath. By finding Liam Graves before he finds us. Fugitives in the night. The weight of Logan's decision settled over him like a heavy cloak. He was officially on the run. Leaving behind his home, his past, and any chance of returning to normal life, all for Bravo. But there had never been another option. Evelyn sat beside him in the passenger seat of his old truck. Her face tense as she typed furiously on her tablet. They'll be watching the highways, airports, and train stations by now, she murmured. We can't risk using credit cards or anything that can track us. Cash only. Logan's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. The road stretched before them, dark and endless, the hum of the tires the only sound breaking the silence. Bravo lay curled up in the back seat. His ears twitching at every passing shadow. Where are we going? Logan finally asked. Evelyn glanced at him. A safe house. Outside Denver. It belongs to an old friend of mine. If anyone can help us disappear, it's him. Logan exhaled sharply. He didn't trust many people. But right now, he had no choice. A target on their backs. They had been driving for hours. Moving deeper into the mountains, when Bravo suddenly lifted his head. His ears perked. His muscles tensed. And Logan felt his stomach drop. Bravo had sensed something. Again. What is it, buddy? Logan muttered, his grip tightening on the wheel. The dog didn't bark, he never did unless it was life or death. Instead, he let out a low growl, his body rigid. Logan's instincts screamed at him. He checked the rearview mirror, and his breath caught. Headlights. Far back, barely visible. But they weren't just headlights. They were following them. Logan's pulse hammered. "Evelyn. Tell me you have a plan." She twisted in her seat, catching sight of the distant glow. Her expression darkened. "They found us faster than I expected." Logan cursed under his breath. There was no way to outrun them, not in a beat-up truck with barely half a tank of gas. They needed to disappear. Now. Into the unknown. "Hang on." Logan yanked the wheel hard to the right. The truck skidded off the highway, plunging onto a narrow dirt road winding into the forest. Bravo let out a sharp huff as the vehicle bounced over rough terrain. Behind them, the headlights followed, and they were gaining. Evelyn pulled a small pistol from her bag. "We need to ditch the truck. Get into the trees." Logan nodded. He slammed on the brakes. Dust billowing around them as they skidded to a stop. "Go. Now." He barely had time to unbuckle before Bravo leaped out first, already ahead of them. They sprinted into the dense woods. The cold mountain air burning Logan's lungs. Branches scraped against his arms. His boots pounded against the damp earth. But the sounds behind them were worse. Footsteps. Voices. Men coming after them. A deadly chase. Logan ducked behind a fallen tree, his heart racing. Evelyn crouched beside him, breathing hard. "We have to keep moving," she whispered. Logan glanced at Bravo, who stood completely still, his nose to the air, his body coiled like a spring. The dog knew exactly where the danger was. And then, a gunshot. The crack of a suppressed rifle split the air. Bark exploded from a tree just inches from Logan's head. They weren't here to capture them. They were here to kill. A desperate move. "Keep going," Logan shouted, grabbing Evelyn's arm. They ran deeper into the forest, zigzagging through the trees. More gunfire rang out behind them. Logan gritted his teeth. They weren't going to make it like this. They needed an advantage, something. Anything. Then Bravo growled and took off toward a rocky incline. Logan followed without hesitation. The dog led them up a steep path, their attackers struggling to keep up. And then, the cliff's edge. Logan's breath hitched. A raging river churned below them, the current violent and unrelenting. Evelyn's face paled. "You're not serious." Logan set his jaw. "It's this or die." Bravo barked once, as if agreeing. And without another word, Logan grabbed Evelyn's hand, and jumped. The icy water swallowed them whole. Drowning in the dark. Logan hit the freezing water like a sledgehammer. The impact knocked the air from his lungs, sending shockwaves of pain through his body. Everything went black. For a moment, he couldn't tell which way was up. The river pulled him under, dragging him into the depths. The current slammed him against jagged rocks, scraping his arms and legs as it tossed him like a rag doll. His instincts screamed. Swim. Move. Get to the surface. He forced his arms forward, kicking blindly, lungs burning. Somewhere in the chaos, he felt a body crash into him, Evelyn. She was struggling, her limbs flailing against the raging current. Then, out of the darkness, a powerful shape surged toward them, Bravo. The dog latched onto Evelyn's sleeve with his teeth, fighting the current with desperate determination. Logan reached out, grabbing onto Evelyn's other arm, kicking hard against the pull of the water. He didn't know how long they fought the river, only that his muscles screamed. And his mind begged for oxygen. Then, air. His head broke the surface. Logan gasped, filling his lungs with sharp, cold breath. He coughed violently, blinking against the rushing water. Evelyn's hand gripped his wrist in a death hold, her eyes wide with panic. Bravo swam beside them, his powerful body cutting through the waves, guiding them toward the shore. Almost there, Logan shouted, barely able to hear himself over the roaring current. He paddled furiously, dragging Evelyn with him. Then, solid ground. His knees slammed against rocks as he clawed his way onto the riverbank, pulling Evelyn up beside him. They collapsed, drenched, gasping, shaking. Bravo stumbled onto land last, shaking water from his thick fur before pressing himself protectively against Logan's side. They had survived. But Logan barely had time to process it, because voices were still shouting in the distance. Their pursuers weren't far behind. Hunted. Evelyn coughed, pushing herself up on shaky arms. They'll find us, she gasped. They saw where we jumped. Logan cursed under his breath. She was right. The men chasing them weren't giving up. They weren't just after him. They wanted Bravo. And they were willing to kill for it. Logan looked around. They had washed up on the far side of the river, deep in the woods. The thick forest stretched for miles in every direction, cloaked in darkness. They had one chance. We have to disappear, Logan said. Now. Evelyn nodded, forcing herself up. We need high ground. Somewhere we can see them before they see us. Bravo whined softly, his ears pricked forward. His nose twitched, tracking. Bravo's got the lead, Logan said, wiping the water from his face. We follow him. Without hesitation. The dog took off, silent and sure. Logan and Evelyn followed. The forest swallowed them whole. The ghosts of war. They climbed higher into the mountains, moving fast, stepping lightly. The night was cold, the dampness from the river making every breath feel sharp. Logan's mind raced. Who the hell were these guys? And how had they found them so fast? His gut told him the answer. Liam Graves. Whoever he was, whatever he knew, he wasn't working alone. This was organized. Professional. And that meant only one thing: Bravo was more important than Logan had ever realized. He glanced at his dog, watching the way Bravo moved, his body tense, his senses locked on something unseen. The dog had always been more than just a companion. He was a fighter. A protector. A survivor. And now, he was a target. But why? Logan clenched his jaw. He needed answers. And the only person who could give them to him was the man hunting them. Liam Graves. The ambush. A sudden snap of a branch made Logan freeze. Evelyn stopped beside him, her hand hovering over her pistol. Bravo stiffened. The woods were silent. Too silent. Then, movement. Shadows shifted between the trees. Logan's blood ran cold. They weren't alone. Move, he hissed. But it was too late. A sharp crack split the air. Gunfire. Logan ducked, dragging Evelyn down with him. Bullets ripped through the trees, splintering bark. They were pinned. Logan Carter, a voice called out. Low. Calm. Familiar. Logan's breath hitched. Liam Graves. He turned toward the sound, and saw him. A dark figure stood at the edge of the clearing, flanked by two armed men. A smirk played at the corner of Liam's lips. Did you really think you could run? He said. Logan's fingers curled into fists. Beside him, Bravo let out a low, guttural growl. This was it. The moment everything was about to change. Logan had questions. And he was about to get answers, one way or another. The truth behind Bravo. Logan's heart pounded as he faced Liam Graves. The man's smirk was cold, calculating. His posture relaxed, but his eyes were sharp. This wasn't a man who made idle threats. Beside Logan, Bravo stood rigid, ears pinned forward, his muscles tensed like a coiled spring. He knew this was no ordinary fight. "Liam," Logan said, his voice steady. "If you wanted me dead, I'd be dead. So why don't you tell me what the hell this is about?" Liam chuckled. "Smart as ever, Carter. You always were a survivor." He took a slow step forward. "But this isn't about you." His eyes flickered to Bravo. "It's about him." Logan tightened his grip on Bravo's leash, his body instinctively shifting to shield the dog. "You have no idea what you're protecting. Do you?" Liam said, tilting his head. "Enlighten me." Liam let out a breath, shaking his head. "You think Bravo's just a war dog? A damn good soldier, sure, but he's more than that." Logan didn't speak. He just waited. "You were chosen, Carter," Liam continued. "They needed a handler. Someone good enough to be his partner. Someone they could test it on without them knowing." Logan's stomach twisted. Bravo whined softly, his nose twitching. Liam's expression darkened. "He's not just a K9. He's part of something bigger, a classified military project." Logan froze. "A project?" he repeated. Liam nodded. "Experimental training. Enhanced instincts. Cognitive intelligence beyond any known K9. He's been conditioned to detect more than just threats, he can predict them." Logan felt his pulse hammer in his ears. "He's a prototype, Logan," Liam said, voice quieter now. "The first of his kind. And they want him back." Logan swallowed hard. He had always known Bravo was special, but this? It changed everything. "You knew," Logan said slowly, his fists clenching. "And you let them use him." Liam's smirk faded. "It was bigger than me, Carter. Bigger than all of us. The difference between winning wars and losing them. Bravo isn't just a dog, he's a weapon. And you have been part of the test without even knowing it." Logan's hands shook. "That's why they want him back," Liam added. "They can't let their secret project disappear." Logan glanced down at Bravo. The dog looked up at him, his deep brown eyes full of trust. For Bravo, it was simple. Logan was his partner. His family. And Logan knew, without a doubt, that no experiment, no secret project, would ever change that. "I don't care what they want," Logan said, his voice hard as steel. "Bravo stays with me." Liam sighed. "I thought you'd say that." He lifted his hand. A signal. The men flanking him raised their weapons. "Last chance, Carter," Liam said, his voice low. "Walk away. Hand over the dog. Or this ends badly for all of us." Bravo growled. Logan's grip tightened. And then, all hell broke loose. The final battle. Gunfire erupted. Logan shoved Evelyn behind a fallen log, drawing his sidearm. Bullets ripped through the trees, splintering bark, kicking up dirt. Bravo lunged. He was a force of nature, faster than the soldiers could react. His powerful jaws clamped onto the first attacker's wrist, yanking the man down with a guttural snarl. Logan took aim. Firing clean shots, legs, arms, disabling but not killing. He didn't want blood on his hands. Evelyn returned fire, her movements precise, controlled. Liam dove for cover, shouting orders. "Stay on them. Don't let the dog escape." But Bravo wasn't escaping. He was fighting. Another soldier lunged at Logan. Bravo took him down midair. For a moment, Logan caught Liam's expression, shock. He had underestimated the bond between them. Bravo wasn't just an experiment. He was a soldier. A protector. A partner. And he would fight to his last breath to keep Logan safe. Liam must have realized it too, because he hesitated. And that moment of hesitation cost him everything. Logan moved fast, tackling Liam, pinning him to the ground. "Call them off." Logan growled, pressing his forearm against Liam's throat. "Now." Liam gasped for breath. He looked up at Logan, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. But then, he smirked. "You think this ends here?" he rasped. "They'll keep coming. No matter what you do." Logan's jaw tightened. "Then I'll make sure they never find us." He slammed the back of his gun against Liam's temple, knocking him out cold. Silence. The gunfire had stopped. The remaining soldiers had been taken down or had fled. It was over. For now. Logan stood, chest heaving, looking down at Liam's unconscious body. Then he turned to Bravo. The dog was covered in dirt, his sides rising and falling with heavy breaths, but his eyes were sharp, alert. "You okay, boy?" Logan whispered. Bravo wagged his tail, pressing his head against Logan's chest. Relief washed over him. Evelyn stepped up beside him. "We need to go. Now." Logan nodded. They didn't have long before more came looking for them. He gave Liam one last glance before disappearing into the woods. A new beginning. Days later, Logan sat in the front seat of a truck, watching the road stretch before them. Evelyn drove, her eyes flickering to him. "We're safe for now," she murmured. "No one's found us yet." Logan nodded, but he wasn't fooled. Liam was right. This wasn't over. But as he reached down to scratch behind Bravo's ears, he felt a sense of peace. They had fought. They had won. And no matter what came next, they would face it together. Bravo nudged his hand, letting out a soft huff. Logan smiled. "Yeah, buddy," he murmured. "I know. We keep moving." With one last look at the open road, Logan turned forward and drove toward whatever came next. The end. Final words to the audience. If you love this thrilling story, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more action-packed, emotional tales like this. Don't forget to hit like share to spread this incredible journey of loyalty, courage, and survival. Join our community of storytellers and adventurers, because the best stories are the ones that stay with us forever. What did you think of Bravo's fate? Would you like a sequel? Let me know in the comments.